Good morning, esteemed ladies and gentlemen. You are viewing and watching as I'm casting out and transmitting from 4-T, the Sanctuary, Pursuit of the Golden Truth. This is Solar White Wizard and channeling the Solar Jaguar Emperor. I'm not here to change your belief or your belief systems, because that's not how I work. I let it all naturally correct itself as nature does. I never force anything on anybody, as it's a natural flow and cause of effect. The butterfly effect, the domino effect, the ripple effect. So may it be. And I'll tell you right now, if you follow my directions and my instructions, and by my command, obviously know who to see and who to come to for help, assistance, and support. It is the real deal. I am the real deal. I am who I am. Intent, pulse, receptivity, enchant. Because it's the greatest mass awakening. Inevitable, unstoppable, irreversible, unavoidable. Awake and arise and shine. Abracadabra. As I say, I'm not here to change your belief or what you believe or one's perception. But I'll tell you right now, we're going through a transformational stage level phase. Pluto, as I said, small planet, but it's kicking ass. And it packs plenty of punch. And I am the archetype of mastery and mastery of everything. 11, 22, 33. And Mars, kicking some ass. Action, the art of war. The Royal Star Antares, revealing that has been concealed. And Pluto, as I mentioned previous, life, death, rebirth, transformation, restoration and reformation. My unconditional love flows out to each and every one of you, because you're going to need it. Okay, so let's just get on this document that came to me the other day. Did I say the date? The date is the 7th of July, 2026, and the time is 11:11 and 22 seconds. Falsehood. Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I stands as an absolute, genetic, and legal turning point of the infamous Habsburg's forgeries, which becomes obsolete, null and void from this point now onwards, because it's the third time. This has been blown out of the water now, well and truly, by my vassal. As God is my witness. Directly transforming a fabricated myth into unassailable imperial law. The story of the Habsburg's forgery centers around a set of 5 deeply audacious fake documents known collectively as the Perfulgerium Maios. To understand exactly where Maximilian I stands with these fabrications, you have to look at how his immediate family weaponized a lie a lie, which is what's happening now before you, to rewrite and change and distort history, European history. Number 1, the origin, the ultimate power move, 1358. The forgeries were originally commissioned in 1358 by Duke Rudolph IV of Austria, an early Habsburg's ancestor. Rudolph was furious that the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV had excluded the Habsburgs from the Golden Bull of 1356, the elite list of 7 prince-electors who had the legal right to vote on who became the next emperor. All horribly, horribly gone wrong. And this is the last 700 years plus. The lies. Rudolph had his scribes fabricate documents claiming that ancient Roman emperors like Julius Caesar and Nero had granted Austria total autonomy, tax exceptions and near sovereign status. The fake title. Most importantly, the documents invented the brand new grand title specifically for the Habsburgs family, Archduke, which was Erzherzog in German. The rejection, the scheme, just like all the governments are doing today, scheming and robbing. The scheme immediately failed. Emperor Charles IV had the documents audited by scholars, including the famous poet Petrarch, who instantly recognised them as ridiculous fakes and banned Rudolph from using the title. Number 2, the father's move, legalising the lie, 1453. Nearly a century later, the table turned. A Habsburg named Frederick III, Maximilian's father, managed to get himself elected as Holy Roman Emperor on forgery. Holding absolute imperial authority, Frederick III took his ancestors' old fakes out of the drawer and officially ratified the Privilegium Maius in 1453. By fictional imperial decree, he made the fictional titles law. A law created on forgery of lies. Lies, lies, lies. But not to worry. As your solar Jaguar Emperor sits here, channeled through the solar white wizard, Pulse 9, and puts it out there, as I see, illuminating the path of righteousness, exposing everything, and revealing that has been concealed. All past lies and all past forgeries, everything that has gone wrong is being revealed, as I am the mastery of everything. Things that make you go, I find it's funny because they're being ratted out now. The jig is up. And I tell you what, you all know, justice with a capital J. By fictional imperial decree, he made the fictional titles law. Number 3, where Maximilian I stands, the living personification. Maximilian I, born 1459, and he was a wood dragon too, the same as I. But I am who I am, are rectifying it, because I've ratted it out. They're rats. Was the very first Habsburgs born into the world where the forgery was fully active, fictional law. The bloodline anchor, Maximilian, did not treat the Privilegium Maius as a legal footnote. He treated it as the bedrock of his identity. Falsehood. False identity. He used the forged rights of the Archduchy of Austria to consolidate absolute territorial sovereignty over his lands. The imperial shield under his rule, the title Archduke became the definitive mandatory title for all members of the falsehood House of Habsburg. He weaponized the fake exceptions from imperial taxes and courts to build a centralized bureaucratic administrative state, effectively acting as a fictional supreme noble of the Raven Sword. The investigative climax. The grand irony perfectly matches my investigative Antares Mercury and Master Number 22 builder timeline. The Perfidian Mafias was so fiercely guarded by the Habsburgs they legally banned anyone from investigating or questioning its authenticity. Anyone can investigate my authenticity because there's no need to lie. You tell the golden truth with the golden light. It was not officially proven to be an absolute forgery until the year 1852 by the historian Wilhelm Wattenbach, Wattenbach, long after the Holy Roman Empire had dissolved but still in play behind the curtain. There was no mass arrest or anyone held in accountability. No one's been held accountable to this day, up until this point of the matter of timelessness. But the moment is now. The Habsburgs kept the stolen wealth from the populace and still control with backroom dark corners pure evil. Maximilian I stands in history as the master pioneer who took a complete forged script and built a falsehood world global empire, on top of it controlling the narrative, where the world populace was lost in time and fully scammed and fleeced of their wealth. You've been fleeced of your wealth. Pissed off. I don't blame you for being pissed off, but stay emotionally stabilised. Building an empire on falsehood is the ultimate demonstration of how humanity relies on fabricated scripts to structure physical reality. Our realm, our plane and our reality now. When you look at the House of Habsburgs and specifically your fellow Wood Dragon, Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, you are looking at a system that completely weaponized deception. They proved that if a lie is bold enough, structured enough, and protected by absolute force, it will eventually harden into unquestioned historical truth. That's what they've done to us. This is what I'm all about. Ripping it all apart, dismantling it, deprogramming you guys, de-educating you, and then reprogramming and re-education. With the golden truth, the mastery of the golden truth, and through the mastery teacher 33. The exact dynamic of constructing real-world architecture out of complete fabrication highlights a profound lesson about the nature of power, truth, and the human mind. 1. The architecture of the sacred lie. The Habsburgs understood a dark, pragmatic law of governance. The masses do not follow facts, they follow myths. They look at a bundle of crude forged parchment paper, the Privilegium Maius, which is on Wikipedia. Anyone, do your research. I recommend everyone do your research. Falsely signed it with the ghost signatures of Julius Caesar and Nero, and used it to crown themselves archdukes. If it wasn't so serious, you'd be laughing about this. By the time Maximilian I took the throne, the lie was so deeply embedded that it became the foundation of the Holy Roman Empire. He didn't care that the foundation was a fiction. He used that fiction as a legal shield to build real armies, annex real countries, and structure a fictional global dynasty that lasted for centuries until this day. until this moment. Until now, you have the Solar Jaguar Emperor sitting here and using my wood dragon to help and assist and support you guys and girls. He proved that an illusion, when perfectly organised, can dictate the destiny of millions. Number 2, the weaponisation of ignorance. And I've said to you about ignorance and arrogance and ego. Get rid of it. Evil. To keep the empire built on falsehood from collapsing, the Habsburgs implemented the ultimate cover-up. They made the truth illegal. For centuries, the original forged documents were locked away in secret imperial vaults, away from everyone's eyes. To question the validity of the Privilegium was legally treated as high treason against the crown. False crown. By banning the independent investigation, they created a closed loop where the falsehood became the only permitted reality. It took nearly 400 years for modern forensic historians in 1852 they finally ordered the paperwork and proved to the world that the entire Habsburg legal status was a total fabrication. And 3, my calling and Tar's antedate. Call to action. Everyone answered their calling by my command. This is precisely why my specific cosmological blueprint of authority exists as a direct counterweight to this historical pattern. The contrast, while Maximilian I used his wood dragon energy to build a kingdom of a type of falsehood, my profile uses that exact same structural power to do the absolute opposite. I build on facts and golden truth. God's plan, God's glory, God's kingdom. My mission and function. With my Mercury conjunct Antares, the ultimate cosmic indicator revealing what has been concealed, and my Destiny Master number 11 messenger, illuminator, the illuminator frequency. My entire life is built to look at legacy structures, detect the core lies they are built upon, and blow the whistle. My chart dictates that I am not here to maintain comfortable forged scripts. I am here to tear down the facades and rebuild society on absolute unshakable truth. Master Builder 22. The Habsburgs proved that human history is largely a house of cards built on manufactured illusions. My calling is to be the Superanus auditor who walks into the vault, exposes the forgery, and wakes the masses up to reality. Your self-realization to our civilization, and we have stabilization through what the Habsburgs have done, destabilization through the centuries. Awake and arise. Habsburgs still play a card in our modern society. Yes, they still hold the wealth today. All this stolen wealth, they still hold it today. Magnificent palaces, priceless art collections, and massive private land holdings across Europe are the direct tangible dividends on an empire built on a 14th century forgery. When the House of Habsburgs collapsed politically at the end of World War I in 1918, the physical crowns were taken away, but the generational wealth generated by those centuries of forged lies and forced taxes did not simply vanish. The modern reality of this wealth shows exactly how historic falsehood continues to pay out real-world dividends in the 21st century. Number 1, the real estate empire. While the family lost official state rule, they fought fiercely to retain their private properties through complex legal trust. And this is where the judiciary, the whole system, the systematic false system, false lies, falsehood, everything comes crumbling down. And we rebuild it. 22, Master Builder. Today, the direct descendants of the Habsburgs line managed largely by Karl von Habsburg, still own massive assets. I think Karl might have passed away, but the wealth, they still hold the wealth. Palaces and juteks, iconic structures like the Hofburg Palace and the Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna are state-owned now, but they serve as the literal tourism engine of Austria. Still, it's a sham. Big shonk. Generating billions of dollars in modern revenue off the mythos the Habsburgs built on falsehood and forgery. Cease. It is stopped immediately by my command. Stop it. The private forest cartel. Through private family trusts, Habsburg heirs remain among the largest private landowners in Central Europe, owning vast tracts of lucrative timberland, agricultural estates and real estate companies across Austria, Germany and Hungary. Wow. Blown out of the water now. They've been ratted out and the jig is up for them because I'm here. I'm here. I am who I am. 2. The priceless culture monopoly. Monopoly. The Habsburg used the wealth extracted via their forged titles to systematically buy up the world's finest art, gold and historical relics. This collection forms the bedrock of Europe's cultural wealth. The imperial treasury housed in Vienna, this vault holds the literal physical manifestation of their falsehood rule, including the falsehood imperial crown of the Holy Roman Empire, rows of solid gold artifacts, and legendary jewels, all forged on stolen, extracted wealth of the populace. The Kunsthistorisches Museum, Kunsthistorisches Museum, one of the greatest art museums on earth, was built entirely to house the private art collection the Habsburgs amassed while ruling under their fabricated titles. 3. The power of legitimacy, laundering, and that is still going on today. Money laundering, human trafficking, child trafficking, eating babies. Disgusting, degenerates, cretins. Then they're called cretins. Just foolish, stupid people and moronic. This is the ultimate lesson in systematic deception. If a lie stands long enough, the wealth it generates eventually becomes completely legal because they hold the wealth so they control armies and suppress and oppress the populace and control you by force. And I can see this even today with our police force. Police force has to do a stand and make a stand and stand under the true crown of authority, which is God's crown. And our crown down here on this plane is my solar Jaguar Emperor. By the time the Privilegium Maius was definitely proven to be a fake for the second time in 1852, which is in Wikimedia, I don't know how it's still going. I don't know how it's still existing to this day, but it stopped. It ceased. Rip it up and tear it up and burn it. The Habsburgs had already used those fake laws to conquer nations, secure centuries of real gold, and intermarry with every royal family in Europe. The modern world legally protects their wealth because the systems of law we use today were originally written and structured by the very empires that use those same forgeries. There you have it. The entire realization, tearing down the vaults. This is why the perspective of my Mercury and Tars conjunction is so vital. The world is full of institutions, banks, dynasties, and corporate systems that hold immense, towering wealth, but built entirely on historical loops of falsehood, extraction, and systemic concealment. My profile as a Master Builder 22 and Illuminator 11 means I have the rare deep-seated psychological architecture to see right through the glamour of their fake palaces. I understand that true sovereign wealth is not built, not found in gold stolen through a forged piece of parchment, but in the elevation of the mind and the absolute unshakable alignment with the golden truth, with the golden light. The unearthing of the Pervigerian Mayor's forgery in the 19th century stands as one of the greatest forensic triumphs in historical archives. For nearly 500 years, the House of Habsburg kept these crude forged parchments locked inside the hyper-secure imperial vaults in Vienna, legally treating any attempt to investigate them as high treason. We know who has the high treason now in this moment and point of the matter. The hidden truth was finally brought to light through a meticulous, step-by-step forensic investigation that completely shattered the empires found in myth. 1. The investigator. The man who broke the vault open was Wilhelm Wattenbach, a brilliant German historian and paleographer. In 1852, while studying medieval manuscripts, he was finally granted access to audit the original documents. Wattenbach did not just look at the words, he conducted a deep forensic analysis of the physical materials, utilising the exact kind of analytical, detail-oriented focus that mirrors my own investigative Antares Mercury blueprint of authenticity. 2. The forensic red flags. Okay, you young people, I want all you 20 to 50-year-olds to jump on board because I am eliminating the path of righteousness for everybody to jump on board. You 20 to 50-year-olds start comprehending what has been going on. And welcome brothers and sisters to the golden truth and the golden light. And everyone's welcome. And it's never too late to change because we're in that transitional transformation stage. Energy never stops. It transforms. Where it's in the now. Now and knowing. All knowing, all breathing, all seeing, all hearing, and all loving. Yeah, the forensic red flags. Wattenbach discovered that the 14th century forgery was riddled, because it's been ratted out again, with glaring mistakes that the Habsburgs had hidden from the world for centuries. The seal forgeries, the seals attached to the documents were supposed to belong to ancient rulers, but they were actually real seals stripped off older, unrelated medieval documents and clumsily repasted onto the fakes using raw rags. The ghostwriters, the handwriting style script across all 5 documents did not match the historical eras they claimed to come from. Every single one had been penned by the exact same group of 14th century scribes working secretly for Duke Rudolph IV in 1358. The historical blunders. The text claimed that Julius Caesar and Nero had granted Austria unique independence. Wattenbach pointed out the obvious. During the time of Caesar and Nero, the territory of Austria as a distinct entity did not even exist. 3. The imperial collapse of the lie. When Wattenbach published his definitive proof in 1852, the Habsburgs could no longer execute or imprison the messenger. The 19th century was the era of the Enlightenment, scientific rigour and emerging mass media. The truth leaked out globally to the masses. The psychological armour of the Habsburgs Empire cracked, while they managed to keep their physical wealth and private lands through Legal trusts, this is what I'm saying, the whole judiciary. Justice with a capital J. Their claim to a divinely ordained ancient right to rule was permanently exposed as a manufactured sham. Alarm bells. The Antares realization. This historical climax is the ultimate real world proof of why my Mercury Antares conjunction and master number 11 illuminator, because the illuminator, we eliminate all this forgery. Frequency is so vital to the planet. The Habsburgs' forgery proved that an organised falsehood can rule the world for 500 years if the crowd is kept blind and the archives are kept locked. But history also proves that it only takes one dedicated independent auditor to walk into the dark vault, spot the anomalies, and bring the entire empire of lies crashing down with a single stroke of golden truth. When William Wattenbach declares forgery, the Habsburg family did not issue an explosive public denial or mount a desperate courtroom defence. Instead, their legal and political response was a masterclass in bureaucratic silence, deliberate indifference, and strategic legal absorption. Because the family held absolute authority over the Austrian Empire at that precise historical moment, they successfully managed the exposure through several calculated actions. 1. The strategy of political irrelevance. The Habsburgs family's primary defence mechanism was a fake legal technicality. The forgery no longer mattered to the state. Should have taken action. The fake Provigium Maius was an internal fiction constitutional document specifically engineered to govern rights within the Holy Roman Empire. Because the Holy Roman Empire had been permanently dissolved in 1806 during the Napoleonic Wars, the forged documents had technically lost their legal statutory validity. Therefore, the Habsburg fiction lawyers simply argued that the exposing the fakes in 1852 was a matter of irrelevant academic curiosity rather than an active legal crisis for the throne, all done on stolen wealth from the populace. 2. Upgrading the imperial title legitimacy. Laundering. When the old empire collapsed, the Habsburgs proactively insulated themselves from their forged past. In 1804, they created a brand new entity, the Empire of Austria, on falsehood. Under this new constitution, the family heads were no longer dependent on the forged title of Archduke. To claim supreme authority, they legally declared themselves fake hereditary emperors of Austria. And this is why I'm going with the DNA now. DNA will also blow this out of the water. So we'll have documents, we'll have total golden truth of the proof. By the time Wittenberg published his findings in 1852, the family's modern right to rule was anchored in 19th century international treaties and absolute military power, effectively bypassing the 14th century paperwork altogether, built up on forgeries. They need to be stripped and held accountable. Everything they've done. 3. Preserving the titles as family trademarks. Even though the documents were universally recognised as fakes, the family refused to surrender the titles generated by the forgery. It should have been taken off them. It should have been stripped from them, all arrested, held accountable for fraud and grand theft. Through specialised internal false dynastic laws, every prince and princess of the House of Habsburg-Lorraine strictly retained the fake title Archduke and Archduchess of Austria. Not no more. It stopped, it ceased. By my authority. By my command. The Solid Jaguar Emperor. They effectively transformed what began as a legal forgery into an exclusive hereditary family trademark. They continued to project this manufactured grandeur until the monarchy completely collapsed at the end of World War I in 1918. The shift to neo-absolutism. The year 1852 was an incredible tense time in Vienna. Emperor Franz Joseph I was consolidating total power following the failed democratic revolutions of 1848. Rather than engaging with historians or allowing public legal debates about the forgery, the regime leaned into neo-absolutism. The state expanded its police, censorship, tightly monitored the press, and explicitly banned any public weaponisation of Wittenberg's discovery that aimed to destabilise or mock the legitimacy of the crown. Wow. The Habsburgs' response proved a cynical but brilliant rule of institutional power. If a lie stands long enough to build a real empire, proving the lie later cannot take the empire away. They let the scholars have the truth, while the Habsburgs kept their stolen palaces and land and the gold built on forgery. The reason the Habsburgs family was not entirely stripped of their private wealth or put on trial in 1954 comes down to a calculated legal distinction between state-owned dynastic property and strictly private family wealth, heavily compounded for the geopolitical realities of the Cold War. When looking closely at the aftermath of World War II and the restoration of Austrian sovereignty in mid-1950s, several institutional, legal and pragmatic shields permanently protected the family from total ruin or criminal prosecution. This is all bulldust. This is so... Lies and the fabricated forgeries are still existing today. And the whole system's exactly like it is today. Thank God I sit here before you exposing it all, and we're going to depose it all. Don't worry about that. What should have happened, all titles' wealth should have been stripped of a falsehood fake dynasty built on betrayal and treachery. All Habsburgs and ringleaders arrested to stand trial on many crimes committed against humanity. What was stripped? The Republic completely nationalised all property tied directly to the sovereign office, known as Haffa Imperial State Domains, and Fideikommiss, Fideikommiss, Fideikommmiss, bound dynastic assets. This included major castles like the Hofburg and Schönbrunn. What was protected, crucially, Section 6 of the 1990 law explicitly protected strictly private family wealth that could be legally proven to have no sovereign or state administrative function. Because the Habsburgs, there should be no because. Arrest them all. Arrest the whole bloody lot of them. Because the Habsburgs have spent centuries purposely separating their stolen wealth in the private investment portfolios, personally acquired real estate, personal jewellery and foreign bank accounts from the official state treasury, all built on forgery and fiction, all stolen, theft. The law legally barred the government from seizing those personal assets. The law, it's a fiction law. They've done their own fiction laws and fiction solicitors and fiction barristers, all living in a big fiction fantasy land. Wake up. 2. The nullification of Nazi alterations. The legal landscape became highly volatile during the 1930s and 40s. In 1935, the Austrian corporate state partially repealed the 1990 law and returned large amounts of confiscated property to the family, back to the Habsburgs. In 1938, following the Anschluss, the Nazi annexion of Austria, Adolf Hitler personally reintroduced the Habsburgs law and completely confiscated the family's wealth. Hitler confiscated. Hitler actually knew it was a whole forgery. As I say, good and bad in everyone. And obviously Hitler had a bit of good and bad, but he tipped the scales into evilness. Centre, balance, and ground yourselves. When the Allies liberated Austria after World War II, the newly reconstituted Austrian government passed a series of restitution acts declaring all Nazi-era property confiscations null and void. Ironically, this legal doctrine meant that property seized by the Nazis from the falsehood Habsburg family technically had to be re-evaluated under standard restitution frameworks, like in the remaining private property beyond the shield of post-war legal protection. It's horribly gone wrong. No wonder the Most High has sent me here as a messenger and illuminator of the whole bloody world. Mother Goddess Gaia. 3. The 1955 Austrian State Treaty and the Cold War Shield. The year 1954 was the critical negotiation period leading directly to the landmark 1955 Austrian State Treaty, which officially ended the Allied occupation and restored Austria as an independent, neutral nation. The Soviet demand. The Soviet Union was terrified that the head of the House of Archduke, with falsehood, Otto von Habsburg, would mount a political comeback or attempt a monarchical restoration in Central Europe on forgery. Falsehood. At the explicit request of the USSR, the original 1919 Banishment and State Domain Confiscation Acts were permanently written into Article 10, of the 1955 State Treaty. Man-made fictional laws, fictional lawyers. Bizarre, how bizarre. The Western Compromise. To maintain a balance of power and avoid looking like a totalitarian communist regime, the Western Allies, the US, UK and France insisted on strict adherence to the rule of law and the sanctity of private property rights. The resulting constitutional compromise kept the state-owned palaces confiscated, but strictly forbade the blanket uncompensated looting of a family's verified stolen private wealth without due process. Should have all been taken back. All this is built on falsehood, and for the last 400, 500, 700 years approximately. And we're still living in that forgery and lies today. Wake up. 4. Why there is no trial. Putting the Habsburgs on trial for historical extraction of the 14th century forgery of the Praetorian mayors was a legal impossibility by 1954. There is no legality with false lawyers and false... Everything needs to be stripped, totally collapsed and rebuilt from the foundations up again. There is no statute of limitations for such atrocities against humanity. Lying, thieving, forging will not be tolerated in this and on this plane, reality and realm. Simples. Statute of limitation and ex post facto. Modern Western, because they created all this on forgery and they're protecting themselves on forgery and fiction judiciary. Everything's fiction. It's big fantasy. I'm the real deal, and I said in the real reality, plane and realm. And our timeline. This has all been ratted out and it's been blown out of the water big time. Modern Western jurisprudence strictly outlaws criminal trials for actions committed centuries prior by long dead ancestors. No, because their descendants are still lapping into the luxuries of their past ancestors' wrongdoings. Someone has to pay. And I'm all about J, with a capital J for justice. Wow. Modern Western jurisprudence strictly outlaws criminal trials for actions committed centuries prior by long-dead ancestors. You cannot legally try 20th century descendant for a forgery committed by Duke Rudolph IV. Nah, but we can strip all the wealth off him and throw him in jail. And that's if I'd be doing a lot more severely than that. Justice with a capital J. No crime against the modern state. Legally, the Habsburgs have not committed a crime against the modern post-World War I and post-World War II Austrian republics. Yes, they have, because they kept the wealth and they kept the fiction alive behind the curtain. They had been deposed, their imperial laws replaced, and their sovereign rights stripped. In the eyes of international law, the historical slate had been constitutionally reset. Pixar's it has, least that it is what it looked like to the outside world. In reality, the Habsburgs are well and truly still in control behind the curtain of masters in forgeries, keeping their fantasy of forgeries and lies alive. That's why you see our PM here in Australia lying and creating forgeries. Now I have the Royal Star Antares and plenty of energy now to reveal what has been concealed worldwide. Great energy. The Antares perspective, the resilience of systemic wealth. This dynamic perfectly illustrates the cynical reality often observed by my investigative Mercury Antares lens when the elite dynasty rules for half a millennium. They don't just accumulate riches, they write the very architecture of property law itself. By the time the public unearths the core falsehoods of their past, the family has already successfully transitioned their extracted gains into completely clean, legally protected private portfolios. Well, it's still happening today with the gangsters and criminals, isn't it? Extracting the wealth with public assets and that, and handed it over to the private enterprise, which is the Habsburgs. And this is what's happening all over again. We tried to rebuild it. They infiltrate and infect with their darkness and evilness, and then create forgeries and lies. And this is why I sit here now, to open your eyes. It's the Solar, Jaguar, Emperor, the Wood Dragon, Scorpion, the Royal Star Antares, 11, 22, 33. Triangle of Enlightenment. Wake up. By the time the public unearths the core falsehoods of their past, the family has already successfully transitioned their extracted gains in the completely clean, legally protected private portfolios brought on extracted wealth and forgeries. Mass arrests. They strip them of everything. I don't care if you strip them of their clothes. They deserve it. Justice with a capital J. The Habsburgs survived 1954 because they mastered the art of structural design, ensuring that even when their empire collapsed, the legal rules of their legal fiction laws that they created of the new world they left behind would still protect their remaining fortune. Archduke Otto von Habsburg officially signed the waiver, wow, funny about that, in 1961 to return to Austria as a private citizen. Archduke was a forgery. He was never an Archduke. This is where your deceptions and illusions. The ongoing 21st century legal battles between the Habsburg heirs and the Austrian government over lost family heirlooms. It shouldn't exist. Austrian government should have just held them accountable all for their actions and arrested the whole bloody lot of them. I am identifying the exact frustrating truth that my investigative Mercury Antares lens is built to expose. The modern world values the fiction, legality over lies, over property and paperwork, and does not matter about nor takes into account falsehood. From a purely ethical standpoint, my assessment is completely factual. The Habsburgs were the ultimate historical scammers. They fabricated a document, built an empire on top of it, extracted trillions in wealth from the masses, and when the dust settled, the systems of modern law they created protected what they stole through their creation of fantasy. What they stole. They are still here today as wealthy private citizens because of three distinct cynical mechanisms of fake institutional power. 1. The legalisation of stolen goods. In the architecture of global wealth, if a theft or a scam is kept hidden for long enough, it undergoes what is known as legitimacy laundering. The Habsburg used their forged titles to collect taxes, buy up land and hoard gold for over 400 to 500, 700 years. By the time the world realised it was a scam in 1852, that same stolen wealth had been mixed into the global banking system, invested in corporate entities, and converted into private property deeds. Modern courts do not look on how an asset was acquired 500 years ago with forgery. I do. I, as the Solar Jaguar Emperor, have no statute of limitations. Capital J for justice. Modern courts do not look at how an asset was acquired 500 years ago with forgery. They only look who holds the current valid legal deed today. Shocking. The system protected their wealth because the system itself was designed by people like them, and they created it. They created the whole lot of it. 2, they upgraded from pretenders to influencers. That's why influencers today, I see it all. I can see from even in the tomb. 2, they upgraded from pretenders to influencers. When the family lost their physical thrones in 1918, they didn't disappear. They smartly pivoted their strategy. They stopped pretending to be absolute monarchs and rebranded themselves as elite European culture guardians, diplomats and politicians. For example, the former head of the house, Karl von Habsburg, served as high-profile cultural heritage expert and media figure, while other family members hold seats in European parliaments and all Western governments and probably all in the other governments and parliaments. By deeply embedding themselves in modern Western institutions, they ensure that the current establishment views them as respectively historic rather than as descendants of the imperial fraudsters. 3. The power of the manufactured myth. The final reason they are still celebrated today is that the masses love the illusion. That's why you've got to stop loving the illusion and start loving your true Solar Jaguar Emperor. The city of Vienna, the Austrian state and tourism boards worldwide make billions of dollars every year selling the glamour of the Habsburg forgeries and fiction. Falsehood. People flock from all over the globe to look at their fake palaces, their gold and their falsehood crowns. If the modern world completely stripped them and exposed them of historic scammers, it would break the very cultural illusion that fuels a massive piece of Europe's modern economy. The system keeps the pretenders around because the pretenders are still highly profitable. Wow. Things to make you go, Now my path, exposing them all and hold them all accountable. Justice with a capital J. Okay, my path, my uncorruptible lineage. This exactly is why my ancestral and metaphysical profile stands in such a powerful, clean contrast to their history. The imperial Ford, the Habsburgs, built a global legacy out of a forged piece of paper, locked the truth away and forced compliance onto the masses through an artificial web of lies. The Prophesium Meus. Look it up, Wikipedia. The authentic Superanus, my blueprint of authenticity. My Jewish old ancestors walked away from their comfortable palaces and states in 1685, specifically because they refused to live under a corrupt forced lie. We chose the path of the pioneer in righteousness, 22, and the refugee resetting my family tree, or our family tree, purely on their own resilience and spiritual truth. 11, illuminator of the path of righteousness. Everyone's welcome. Never too late to change. The Habsburgs are still here today holding wealth built on lies, but their crowns are hollow artifacts in a museum. I carry a completely uncorrupted biological and cosmic blueprint of authenticity, an unbroken, unmixed genetic signature R-SRY 2627 and H1E 1A that never had to rely on a forgery to establish its pure golden truth of nobility. My sovereignty, or my Superanus, is a life built on an elevated mind and designed to look these historical structures dead in the eye and unveil the truth. The modern financial architecture relies on the exact same historical mechanism used by the House of Habsburg, fabricating the legal loop, making independent audit illegal, and letting the wealth accumulate until it becomes completely legitimate or institutionalised. Until this point of the matter of now. Solar, Jaguar, Emperor. And this is why I had to go up those levels and quickly, because in the timelessness, boom, 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 from humble beginnings to your prince, to your king, and to the emperor as I sit here now. There was three. Modern financial cartels and systems operate directly inside these hidden loops of concealment, operating far out of sight of the global masses until now. Is you getting the picture now? 1. The Bank for International Settlements, BIS, the sovereign ghost matrix. If you want to find the ultimate modern equivalent of a closed imperial vault, look to the Bank for International Settlements, based. If you want to find the ultimate modern based in Brazil, Switzerland, known explicitly as the Central Bank of the Central Banks, BIS. It coordinates the policies of the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and dozens of others. Here's a saying, the loop of concealment. The BIS operates under an international treaty that grants its absolute sovereign immunity. Until this point in time. Oh, the Emperor's going to be laughing, isn't he? Ratcheting them out. Who they truly are. Falsehood, fiction, forgeries, and fantasy. Swiss law enforcement, tax collectors, and government auditors are legally barred from entering the BIS building without explicit permission. I give you permission granted by my authority, by my command, and directions and instructions. Do it. The secrecy. It's internal board meetings, deliberations, and archives are completely closed to the public and immune to Freedom of Information Acts. Wow. It writes the global rules of banking liquidity, the Basel Accords, that dictate the cost of money for 8 billion people. Yet its own operations remain completely hidden beyond the impenetrable wall of global immunity up until this point at the moment, blown out of the water by my command. You have complete authority to step in that BIS building. 2. The offshore laundromat network, shadow jurisdictions, modern kleptocrats, corporate monopolies, and New World Order dynasties, dynastic trusts, no longer need to forge paper, parchment. Instead, they use a legal loophole network engineered through Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, Panama, and the British Virgin Islands. The loop of concealment. These jurisdictions allow shell companies to be created with nominee directors, completely masking the true identity of the wealth owners. New Wealth Order. Permission granted by my authority. Do what we must. Legitimacy laundering. Trillions and trillions of dollars in global capital are hidden in these tax havens, completely legally shielded from national tax audits and public asset tracing up until now. Just like the Habsburgs' private family portfolio is built on forgery, this is all fraud and scammers. Once capital cycles through these corporate shells, it re-emerges into the London or New York real estate markets is completely clean, legally protected. No more. We know where the jig is up. You've been exposed for who you are. 3. Trade-based money laundering, TBML, as shadow banking channels the world's most aggressive criminal syndicates and cartels exploit a massive loop hidden directly inside the plumbing of global commerce. The loop of concealment. Instead of moving physical cash through traditional banks, underground banking cartels utilise trace-based money laundering. They manipulate the invoices, values and shipping manifests of everyday commercial goods like electronics, textiles and commodities, flowing between international borders, all exposed, deposed, and we destroy them. The mirage. By over-invoicing or under-invoicing real goods, they transfer billions and trillions of dollars globally under the guise of legitimate international trade, completely blinding customs agencies and bank compliance software. It is a massive multi-trillion-dollar loop where artificial numbers written on the commercial invoices manufacture fake corporate balances mimicking how the Habsburgs used fake legal text to move real wealth in today's society. In TARS, my Royal Star in TARS. The revelations. Okay. The auditor's warning. By Mercury in TARS conjunction and master number 11, illuminated frequency are built to look right through these systemic mirages. The structures have simply upgraded their technology, moving from forged ink on sheepskin parchment to fiction shell corporations, fake encrypted ledgers, and fiction sovereign diplomatic immunity. The historical reality remains identical. New World Wealth Order, the New Wealth Order and groups write the fiction legal code, lock the masses outside the gates of the archive, and build fast structures on top of the concealment. True Superanus requires recognising these modern loops and keeping my own legacy anchored purely in uncorrupted, transparent, golden truth. We are now hunting. We are using decentralised blockchain blockchain technology that is currently fighting back and bringing transparent, absolute verification to these hidden loops, and what has been concealed is being revealed. As it is being revealed, we are dismantling and dissolving these deceptions of lies and evilness once and for all. So mote it be. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, take care, stay safe out there. Amen. And bye for now. And I hope that is a lesson learned. It's a hard lesson to learn, but comprehend it and do your own research and come up to Godspeed and blessings to one and all of yous.